I've got scars that can't be seen. I've got drama, can't be stolen. Everybody knows me now. Look up here, man, I'm in danger. I've got nothing left to lose. I'm so high it makes my brain whirl. Drop my cell phone down below. That just like me. By the time I got to New York, I was living like a king. Then I used up all my money. Looking for your ass. This way or no way. You know I'll be free. Just like that bluebird. Now ain't that just like me? Oh, I'll be free. Just like that bluebird. Oh, I'll be free. Ain't that just like me?
Hey, good evening or good morning. Rage against the dying of the light. That's always been my motto. Hey, Crafty, good to see you again. How are you? Can you remind me, Crafty, what your take was on the Sarah Boone discussion the other night? I know you were in there. Just remind me what you were thinking about that case. Hello, Jamie. Always good to see you. Perfect timing. Well, I don't know if I have a lot of thought-provoking content. I've got a few things to talk about, but I thought I would just make this an impromptu live and see where it takes us, right? Giving your dog some cuddle time. Yeah, I remember seeing your dog. Hey, Green Eyes, how are you? Voices in your head, how are you? It's really cool when you take a break from YouTube, which I highly recommend, by the way, just in general. Getting some perspective is never a bad idea. But it's kind of cool when you take a break and you come back and you see some new names pop in, and I love that. Yeah, you did too. Yeah. Me's or mom? I recognize your name. How are you? So, if anyone has any thoughts or questions about the Sarah Boone case, that's obviously the case that I'm kind of most thinking about these days with the trial coming up, or any other questions, fire them away. Um, you can ask anything. I might not always answer, but you can certainly ask. Where you been? Well, I've still been around. I've just not really been putting out content, Meezer Mum. Just thing is with true crime. I mean, I don't only talk about true crime, but obviously that's the majority of the content, right? You can only really, to me, you can only really take it in packages. I tend to kind of get into a few cases and then it gets a bit too dark. So it's always good to have a break, come back here and there. I've got so many other interests as well. So it's just natural. Stephen Smith. Okay, yeah, that is going to be interesting. This is the young guy um, who died under very suspicious circumstances. He's obviously connected to the Murdo family, which was one of the most intriguing trials of recent years. I think most people would agree. And this is obviously, there's a lot of suspicion about Alex Murdo's son, one of his two sons, Buster, who it I don't know a lot about what went on here, but it appears there may have been some relationship between Buster and Stephen Smith, who was found as if he was killed in a hit and run. It's just getting started. Yeah. I tell you what, doesn't that family just prove the rule that you cannot buy class? That whole family was a nightmare. Toxicity just ran through that family. Possibly me's or mom. Yeah, so he was found as if it was a hit and run by the side of the road. There was blunt force trauma, I believe. And I've heard it said that because the shoes that he was wearing were not, were lying to the side or weren't on his feet, it didn't feel like it was just a hit and run. I was, okay, so Crafty's got back about Sarah Boone. Technically, I'd say second degree. Yeah, most people think that it is the right charge, second degree. I'm obviously arguing for manslaughter. But it's going to be one interesting trial. And from a selfish point of view, I'm praying she takes a stand. More so than anything, just to observe any changes in Sarah. She's been incarcerated for 3 years. I agree, voices, yeah. Yeah. Hey, my crazy life, how are you? Yeah, like I've said, it's a to me, it's just a hor horrific indication of the of a warning about the real danger of addiction, not only to the person that's going through it, but to people surrounding them. Obviously, in the most horrific way here. But addictions can really strip away intentions, um, or magnify intentions, maybe. Letitia Stoug's coming up as well, right? Yeah. And she was trying to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. And from what I read the other day, it was declined from, I think, the court's appointed psychiatrist, but then the defense have their own psychiatrist looking at her, and I'm not sure if that's come back yet. Yeah, they're in jury selection. She is just crazy, Miser Mom. Just, I mean, we've all seen the interview of her with her daughter, and my God. I mean, superficially, it looks, without knowing a huge amount about her, it just looks like she just took out all her rage in her life and in her um, jealousy and her problems in her relationship on her stepson. Just absolutely vile, you know? And I thought that they had found Gavin nearby, that she had dumped him somewhere nearby and then drove, I think, down to Florida with him in the back. She was driving down there with her daughter, I think, right? All that way. Hey, Thing One, good to see you. How are you? It's been a while. Yeah, I was just saying earlier, the problem with me and YouTube is my desire to go live is so dependent on my mood, which it doesn't usually give me the luxury of going on at convenient times, which I don't really mind, but it can be awkward coming on at certain times, right? But I kind of like it. Jealousy is maybe the worst attribute a person can have. Yeah, yeah. Some people think that jealousy and self-pity are two of the most toxic traits anyone can have in life. And it's interesting to think about jealousy and envy. You know, they sound like this, they're describing the same things, but there's a subtle difference. Envy is or it should be quite a positive trait, you know? It's good to be envious of things that you admire or respect, but jealousy is it's a more hateful trait where you really not only do you want to have what someone else has, but you don't want them to continue having it. Raintree, my very first live. Hello from Canada. Hello. This can't be your first live. I recognize your name. You might change your name to My Crazy Life too. Well, every single one of us has crazy lives, I think. It's all relevant. Very destructive. Yet jealousy is very destructive. And so is self-pity. Self-pity. See, the thing about self-pity, even if it's justified, it's it it brings forth no positivity. So even if you have reasons, justifiable reasons to feel sorry for yourself, you're only going to harm yourself. And it is interesting to come back to YouTube when things are so quiet. It's getting to be almost like the crazy old days, isn't it? Perfect example, Jodi Arias. Yeah. Throw in some abuse there as well, and rage, and revenge, and then you've got Jodi Arias. Jamie, my folks taught me don't count other people's money. Don't measure what they have. That keeps jealousy at bay for me. Yeah. See, there's certain phrases that are cliches for a reason, you know. Um, you can't take your money with you is one of them. He did, and a lot of people don't like to say that, Muser Mom, about Travis Alexander, but he was not a great person. I'm sure he had great sides to him, and he would have hopefully become a better person. But the way he treated Jodie, with all the veneer of um, his strong religious beliefs, was so sickening. I think he pretty much destroyed Jodie's soul. Now, of course, she had to have what it took inside her to do what she did, but he certainly, of course, he didn't deserve what he got. But if it wasn't for the way he treated her, then that switch that was already in her head wouldn't have been switched on. But I'm not without sympathy for Jodie. I have to say that. I have to say that. Yeah. Best revenge is living well. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no drama at all. My crazy life is so quiet. There's nothing going on at all. You really, yeah, you have to question just what the hell people want out of their time on YouTube. What is their end goal? Is it fulfilling? And what people need to remember is, I think to me, and I think to a lot of people that are viewers, subscribers around YouTube, there's nothing more valuable than detecting sincerity in a creator, someone that you want to follow and get to know. Fuck numbers. Forget about subscriber counts. They only matter to creators that put value in that. The greatest value on here and any other social media is sincerity. There's no equity more valuable than sincerity. So that's actually a good question, Jamie. Does everyone have that switch, or is it only a select few? That's one of the most fundamental questions in true crime to me, psychologically. Is every one of us, given the most horrendous circumstances and just the worst events, capable of that? Possibly, right? I hope not. We all don't think we are, but we're all part of the same species, unfortunately. Yeah, Meezer. Jodie is nuts, but he mistreat her. Yeah. Yeah, and that's right. Seems to be Cash, in my opinion. Yeah, Cash is very like when I say numbers, I'm yeah, not just viewer numbers, subscriber numbers, but similarly. Cash, good old hard currency. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with um, earning cash on here if people value your content. Nothing wrong with it. It's the sincerity that's the issue, right? Voices. I don't know which way to look on YouTube at the moment. It's insane. Yep. Yep. Raintree. I cross stitch and I'm going to put Rage against the Dying of the Light on antique cloth and hang it in my living room. Yeah, I'm glad you noticed that there. That's obviously the Dylan Thomas quotation. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Crafty. Jodie had problems long before she met Travis, but they were exacerbated by both their behaviors. Immovable object meets unstoppable force. Yeah. And see, the thing with Jodie is that there was clearly so much premeditation, you know? It wasn't a crime of passion. She had clearly, from all the evidence, planned this for days, you know? So it just makes it all the more uh, vile, you know? It just makes it all the more hideous. My switch would flip if someone harmed my kids, but they're grown now. Yeah, I'd agree. I think I would too. My crazy life. Yep, it's all game. I wish more people would realize that. Yeah, yeah. And see, I'd like to talk about the concept of loyalty as well at some point because it's quite a loyalty is a funny beast. I agree. There's nothing wrong with earning money on the platform, but people get too emotionally invested in games and nonsense, not realizing it's a cash grab. Yeah, the gas cans, right? See, that's the most revealing thing about how people behave on YouTube. Thing one. People are quick to say I love you, then the next day they're tearing you apart. It's always an obvious red flag when people swing literally 180 degrees from loving to want to tear their heads off. And there's only that's telling you something that um, either they're unstable or the adoration was insincere to begin with. It is a lost art on YouTube, but there are loyal people out there. But see, um, yeah, Jamie, my sixth grade son's teacher set off my alarms. He was later imprisoned for sex crimes on 11 kids. Oh my God. You sensed it, right? In what way is loyalty strange? Please explain. Okay, so loyalty is obviously something desirable in friendship, but there's certain things that friendship aren't. Friendship is not enabling. Friendship isn't rubber stamping every behavior simply because you're friends. What friendship is also criticism, honesty, and some people confuse that as not being loyal. Well, they're just confused. It's very easy to enable and clap along like a seal. It's a lot harder to tell the truth. True, Shannon. Yeah, yeah, I get you. I hear you. But the point still stands. People love, for some reason, have this 180-degree thing going on. When it comes to support to hate. Very, very strange. And it's obviously part and parcel of what social media and YouTube does to people. It's really interesting. It makes people kind of crazy, but it's not an excuse, right? That crazy has to already be there. It's just exaggerated by this need for winning some abstract game. People have a problem thinking ahead, maybe looking at the big picture. What is it I'm on here for? What are my goals? How am I going to feel about myself down the line about this whole enterprise? Who am I helping? What am I communicating? What am I creating? Is it just all about validation? Love me, love me. Hey, Cheryl, crazy life. I'm loyal to my family and my friends, and that's about it. Yeah, I kind of have, yeah, when it comes to friends and family, I'm kind of the Godfather, Al Pacino mentality. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to criticize you, and it doesn't mean that I wouldn't accept criticism from my family or friends. I think it's what's called being an adult. Jamie, um, sometimes friends need a different point of view, a wake-up call. That comes from love. Yeah, and it comes from hard love. Thing one agrees. Hard to find people with good character. It's getting harder and harder as the decades tick by, I think, me or mum. I am kind of a pessimist, but I think that's an observation that's kind of factual. There are some real whack jobs on YouTube, Jamie. Yep. Sometimes it takes a while for it to be confirmed. But yeah, they're sure out there. Shannon, I think YouTube needs to verify and authenticate accounts so people are who they say they are and not hiding behind fake multiple accounts. Uh, yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I don't know, maybe. I certainly agree that people should be held accountable for certain things. My crazy life. Social media gives people a false sense of self and a full sense of popularity and fame. It's really pretty sick if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, because it's so abstract and fleeting. You're one of about 8 million YouTube creators on here. What, you know, what's it all for? We kind of live in this celebrity age, I think, where everyone, and it kind of scares me about the younger generation that's grown up underneath us all. It's kind of taught and assumed by society in the West that it's perfectly achievable to become a sort of mini celebrity, to have adulation thrown your way, you know, this entitlement. And you can't blame kids that are growing up when they're having that impression thrown at them. If that's what they believe is the norm, then they can't be blamed for becoming narcissistic monsters. Yeah. I think half of the accounts would disappear if that happened. Yeah, uh, I think it would. Neither mom, Jamie. I remember you from Alice's site, a real whack job. Which Alice is that? I'm not sure. I was a Pollyanna, gave benefit of the doubt, took folks at face value. YouTube cured me of that. Completely relate to that. But see, here's the thing. You have to be careful that your experience on YouTube doesn't impair your kind of natural good traits, of giving people the benefit of the doubt. It's It'd be very easy to become way too cynical um, through experiences with social media and true crime. I think bad experiences are just more highlighted on here because of the reasons we've just been talking about. This temptation, this temptation for insincerity. All right, Alice Cooper. Okay, got you. Enough said. Enough said. I'm going to throw the panel link in chat because I can only talk to myself for so long, guys. I do have a few um, things to bring up. Uh, firstly on the Debbie Collier case. Hey, Ghost. Always great to see you. Glad you're here. Yeah, so who followed the Debbie Collier case in chat? I'm going to pin that panel link at the top there. There we go. I've learned about mental illness from YouTube. Yeah, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, as just an observer of what goes on YouTube, it can be really valuable. It really can. And I don't draw a huge distinction between the way that I enjoy to observe true crime. It's mostly interrogations and trials that I focus on because you have such a luxury to view these people um, behaving in a certain way when you have the knowledge you never really have any other way. You have the knowledge of their guilt, so you know when they're lying, and it's fascinating to observe that. And there's not a huge distinction between that and witnessing and observing some YouTube creators. I have to say that. I'm not sure about agreeing with the outcome in reference to the Debbie Collier case. Yeah, so Debbie Collier, let me just, it's been a while since I covered this, but I'll just um, bring up a refresher. So this was in Georgia. So Debbie was a mother in her early 50s, and no, she's 59 actually, sorry. And she was found deceased just off a main highway in Georgia, quite a distance from her home. And the circumstances leading up to her being found deceased were so peculiar. She was filmed on a CCTV security camera buying some strange items as if she was going to view a football match. She had her Georgia Bulls football gear on. She had the top and she had on shorts, and she got a poncho, she got a lighter, a tarp, I think, and then yeah, she stopped in a lay-by on the highway, um, a good hour from our home, and she was about a mile or two into the woods. She was found with next to a burnt out fire pit, and she had burns to her body. And law enforcement, when they first did a press conference, were very specific that this was foul play and it was personal. So it was really strange when they ruled it a suicide. I think about a month later, um, she had loads of burns. At first, we thought she had burns only on her stomach area, but it turns out that she had burns on 80% of her body. There was a burnt out gas can nearby. But what's interesting is there's a really famous pathologist that was given the medical report by a reporter, and he's concluded that it was homicide. Michael Baden, he's the former chief medical examiner for New York City. He was hired by the families of George Floyd, Jeffrey Epstein. I think he may have been involved in the Christian Andriacchio case. I'm not sure, but I recognize his name from something. Yeah, so he concluded it was more likely a homicide than a suicide. That's Michael Baden there. Yeah, so the authorities' statement here, a detailed examination of all gathered information has enabled investigators to determine, based on factual evidence and data, that Debbie's death was self-inflicted. Furthermore, the GBI Medical Examiner's Office has determined that the cause of death was inhalation of superheated gases, thermal injuries, and hydrocodone intoxication, and that the manner of death was suicide. Which, on the face of it, is such a bizarre way or series of events um, for suicide. Just it's hard to conceive. Did she overdose on the hydrocodone and then set herself on fire, or accidentally set herself on fire? However, this independent pathologist said that the level of hydrocodone in Collier's body at the time of death was actually consistent with that of someone who was on a pain management regime for back issues. She had a very bad back. So he's saying that, there wasn't any sort of spike in in her consumption of that. Additionally, he said that the autopsy found no traces of soot or carbon monoxide in her lungs, which meant that she was dead prior to her body being exposed to the fire. Such evidence is present 90% of the time when people die in a fire, especially self-immolation. Baden said from a forensic point of view, that would indicate that she was dead before the fire started. He also said the fact that Collier was found naked led him to believe that it was unlikely she died by suicide. You usually need clothing to set yourself on fire, he said, adding that if she died before the fire, it would imply that at least one other person was in the woods with her. So there you go. Jamie, it's such a rare form of suicide, especially for a female. It's rare enough for anyone, right? For men, if it's not for some ideological, symbolic reason, but for a female, it's so unlikely. And remember, her son Jeffrey was adamant that it was foul play, just like they announced during the first press conference. And then he had a really bad experience with the Habersham, the local sheriff. So I wouldn't think he was too convinced by the sudden change. And then we didn't really hear anything more about this until now with this. So I was wondering if the pathologist was hired by the family, but all I could find was that a reporter gave him the autopsy, or the autopsy results, medical report. It is a real mystery, yeah. Does anyone know if Michael Baden was involved in the Christian Andreacchio case? Hey, with respect, good to see you again. And thanks for your nice comments under the last live, by the way. That was awesome. You know of a guy that did it? No way. God. Now, obviously, there was a lot of suspicion cast on Debbie's young daughter in her daughter's boyfriend for certain reasons. They had a lot of issues in their past. Um, Now, this is obviously one of the downsides of such public access, when it comes to true crime, is when people surrounding these events can go through pretty a lot of exposure, obviously, in the media and in social media. That's the huge downside to it. Yeah, right, Jimmy. It's more common for ideological reasons, protests and things. That might be right, Crazy Life. Yeah, he may be retired and just doing special investigations when hired. But I couldn't see anything more from Jeffrey the son, so it'd be interesting to know what he's making of things, for sure. Because it's one of the most bizarre cases I've followed on here. See if I can get show you guys the video that we have. Hey Tracy, Carmen Chaos, how are you? Again, there's a link at the top there, guys, if anyone wants to jump up on panel. Feel free. Don't be shy. The Murdo case is, yeah, crazy, Miserman. I still don't quite understand his motivation, other than his world was just falling to pieces, right? And you add in his severe addiction issues. It's like he just went completely insane. Just bizarre. But it was such an interesting trial. Opioids, yeah. Yeah. Why can't I find this folder? Debbie Collier. Okay, there we go. All right. And this is an older picture of her, actually, I found, which is a really nice picture. Looks like she was at a wedding. Oh, your brother's friend. God. And it was obviously intentional with respect, yeah? And they flail around, they don't lay straight. The initial scream sucked petrol into his lungs. God. Yeah. To imagine what someone must be going through, to take it there. Yeah, Tracy. It was ruled a suicide, which I think surprised everyone, due to what we knew about the case and how she was found and just her activity. But a reporter got an independent pathologist, Michael Baden, to have a look at the reports, and he concluded that it was more likely to be homicide. There was no soot or in her lungs, and her carbon monoxide levels weren't there. So there's still doubt, it seems. Um, and she sent this most bizarre of messages along with a payment to her daughter Amanda as she was parked in her car. Um, Very specific amount, $2,385. They're not going to let me go. Love you. There's a key to the house in the blue flower pot by the door. And then she switched her phone off, or her phone was switched off at that point. Some people have obviously theorized that someone else may have sent this or had control of her phone. Um, and she was outside a dollar store when she sent this, and she was found the next morning by that lay-by in the woods, about a mile or a mile and a half into the woods. That's her there parking. And it was always very strange that she stopped there as she does, and then decides to move further in. I mean, it's easy to look too far into things like that, in true crime. It could be a completely natural reason that she stopped briefly there. And there she is walking in. You see how she's dressed. I mean, she's dressed as if she's going to one of those. Do you know how over in the States you guys have those kind of hangouts, in car parks and things when there's a big football game on or a baseball game on or whatever. She was dressed like that, as if she was going to an event like that. I know, Jamie. Where's all the money that he stole? He sure wasn't spending it all on drugs. He would have been dead a long time ago. Was he really a big dealer? Yeah, you see her there. And there's nothing apparently, you don't get the impression that she's, you know, under duress going in there as if, someone has control of her, You don't get that impression from this footage. So of course, if it was suicide, then to me, the only way to read into that Venmo message is that when she's speaking about the fact that they won't let her go, that she's referring to her demons. You know, there has to have been some real deep psychological breakdown going on, you think? You know? She couldn't escape her demons. Sex trafficking. I've not heard that connection being put out there regarding murder. He's asking for his untainted money for appeal. I haven't heard anything about this sex trafficking thing, guys. Tailgate party, that was the words that I couldn't find, yeah. She looks like she's going to a tailgate party, right? Yeah. Jamie. Rabid, did anyone Collier knows say she was meeting them at the game? No, no one did. And the other thing is that her husband was working at the game. He was parking cars at the game. But he's accounted for during this period of time. You never know. I mean, a lot of people conjectured that perhaps she was meeting someone, and the reason that it's also all these events are so bizarre is because it was something secretive, right? It's a very odd amount of money, and people have pointed out that the amount of money that she transferred was very close to the amount um, needed by her daughter's boyfriend for some costs that he had. So you can obviously derive a lot of speculation from that, right? Uh, Tracy, did you see Jules of Thought wearing that wig hat? It may not have been Debbie. Guys, that's Debbie. Believe me, that's Debbie in that footage. Trust me. There is a interview on Fitz News with a sex worker who knew Murdo. Alright, let's see if I can find that. What's the name of the channel? Is there a channel that I can get that? That I can get that on? Fitz News. Okay, so I'm on Fitz News channel. But I don't see the interview that you were referring to. Do you know what the title of the video would be? Yeah, I don't see it. Someone made her transfer the whole lot. If it was her actually transferring, i.e., 2,500, and she has 2,552. You wouldn't bother with the extra. That's what's so strange about it, yeah. It's very strange. So the video I'm after is someone mentioned an interview on Fitz News regarding this sex trafficking thing with the Murdo case, right? Sex workers strangled by Murdo. What? Awesome. Actually, you should be a mod with respect. Do you want me to mod you? Do you mind being a moderator? If I do that, then you can put the link in yourself. But if you don't want to be a moderator, just let me know. I've heard nothing about this. And then, of course, we had the statement from Frankie in regards to armchair detective. I'd recommend people checking out Salty's live about that last night. Okay, I just got the link there from Cheryl. Awesome. Okay, so see if I can play that. Yeah, so after that, after she was in the dollar store, she came out. She sat in her truck for a while, and then if you were watching, you would have seen her turn, and then she stopped kind of halfway up here in a space for a while, and then that's when she sent the message, that Venmo message, and then she started to leave the car park, and then even the way she left the car park was kind of strange. She was kind of she wasn't very purposeful. She seemed hesitant the way she was leaving. And she took a strange route. She sort of turned down a bit and then she came up and then she eventually left down there going towards the highway, heading back down south to where she was found. She was in Atlanta, I think. I think it was Atlanta. No, somewhere else. It was another big city in Georgia. Salty is back, Tracy, yeah. I don't think they've done a live for a while, but they did a live there yesterday, just giving their thoughts about Frankie Ruchek's statement. Right, so I've got that link. Give me a sec.
Welcome everybody to the Fitz News Studios.
Okay, so this is about an hour long, so obviously I'm not going to play it all. I should put this link in the chat so anyone that's interested in this channel can go and check it out. There you go. Hey, Life Rewinded, how are you? Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I've not been on for a while. Okay, so just let me know in chat if you can't hear this. It should be fine.
A very special interview today, a story that we have been dying to tell you, that we've been excited about ever since we found our guest on TikTok. Lindsay Edwards, tell us a little story. How do we connect?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess you can say I posted videos referring to Alex Murdoch being one of my clients from when I was sex trafficked for about 2.5 years. And with the overturn of Roe versus Wade, it made me want to come out and talk more about my situation and what I went through and how Roe versus Wade really helped me and protected me when I was in that sort of imprisonment. And now that South Carolina is going to be one of the next states that puts an abortion ban up and starts removing health clinics and easy access to Plan B and birth control and stuff, it's not something I want to see for the state that I love. I lived here for 9 years and it's definitely my place that I call home. And to have that taken away from all the women in this state absolutely kills me.
Tell us a little bit about that too, because so many people hear, Planned Parenthood and they think, well, it's just abortion, but actually some of the things you're talking about would have prevented the necessity of abortions, correct?
Yeah. I mean, when you get rid of the abortion clinics, you're also getting rid of more easy access to Plan B, birth control, regular free checkups for women, and the ability to be able to just walk into a clinic and get a bag of condoms
Mm-hmm.
for people who can't really afford it or can't get them normally or even scared to even ask their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, all in all, like, it'll prevent more abortions from happening and people from having to travel outside of states and spend money they don't have or even having to find time to escape their jobs or abusive spouses or whatever it may be.
So the irony here is that there's a lot of people who may be pro-life, but the fact that they're depriving people access to some of those services is putting more people in the position where they would get pregnant to potentially have to have abortions.
Yeah. And then you're opening up the possibility of a lot of back alley abortions that can further harm, possibly even kill women. And then even if they don't put an exception to medical emergencies, having incomplete miscarriages can kill women. Having ectopic pregnancies can kill women. And then it's like, well, if you want all these babies to be born, then you need to make sure that the mothers are alive to be able to even make more children in the future if they want to.
So this ruling pissed you off.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And you took to your TikTok account
Yeah.
Tell us, and again, we're going to get into all the details on Alec Murdoch here in a minute, but tell us about the response when you posted this video. What happened after you dropped that name on social media?
Um, I ended up like getting trapped into something that I had no clue about until it was too late.
Mhm. And let's distinguish, because you and I we had a wonderful chat yesterday. We were talking about a lot of things getting ready for this interview, but we were breaking down the difference of, there's dancing, there's sex work, but then there's people who are legitimately forced into, I mean, it's rape in some of these cases, right?
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like dancers, prostituting, and human trafficking all kind of fall under the lines of sex workers. I mean, dancing is definitely like it's a sex work in a way, but it's in a different fashion, a lot more innocent and legal fashion, per se. They all fall under like the sex workers category. Too much about having certain things shut off unless up. And when I guess you can say I started traveling out and going to other clubs outside of Hilton Head, I went up to Charleston. I worked at Stilettos. I worked at the Southern Belle, which is now Goodfellas Cabaret. And even more so there, I mean, like even if you go nude, like money still was not as good. And I kind of stuck with staying at Stilettos a lot and realizing that they had a very large clientele coming in, a lot of people, a lot of sales. It was a lot more suitable to be a dancer there because you would actually make money and not have to pay so much to leave the club every night. But the amount that I was traveling from Beaufort all the way to Charleston, 6 nights a week on top of $300 a week in childcare, it was still like just barely making it.
At this point, you're just dancing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I never wanted to be the type of person that even worked in the clubs that would suck dick for money, fuck in the back rooms, or anything like that. That was never my forte whatsoever. I always was very strict and in my lane with that because I've seen other girls do it and I see how it makes every other girl in the club upset and mad because in a way it's like that gives men in the clubs like a leeway of like, "Oh, well, we can do this dance, but this girl did this for me, so will you do this for me?" And it's like if you say no, then it's like, "Oh, then I don't wanna deal with you."
Changes expectations. So,
Yes, it completely gives them the wrong expectation of what a strip club really is.
it forces you to either do it or lose out on money.
Yeah, and I still stuck to my guns, it was not something I wanted to do. And I got word, from, I guess you can say, all the girls in the club about this one lady who ran girls for private parties.
Mhm.
And me being young and naive, I didn't know really what private parties was.
Now, how old are you at this time?
I'm 28.
Okay.
And back then I was 20 years old.
Okay.
So, um, they wanted to, they were informing me about how this lady would run girls for private parties. We'd basically be doing what we were doing in the club, but in private houses and rental houses, beach houses, wherever it may be, where guys are having like bachelor parties and stuff, or like a guys' weekend and everything. And they were very high up men, I guess you can say,
Mhm.
and would pay a lot of money for it. And we would make a lot more going with her and doing it privately versus being in the club and having to pay all these fees and tip outs and basically fight for money at that point.
At this point, though, the private parties, your presumption is I'm just going to dance.
Yeah.
It's same thing, just different location, just
Yeah.
out of the club.
Yeah, and I was like, "Well, that's even better because then it's like I can make my own schedule a lot more easier than if I was in the club. I can it would be a lot more, I guess you can say, flexible in a way, and I could have more time off to be able to spend time with my daughter while still making just as much, if not more." And I was all for it, and I had, one of the girls that was very close with her because her older sister also worked for this lady in the past, get me in. And that's kind of, I guess you can say, how I got in, because there was a bunch of other girls that were begging to, but she wouldn't take them. It was only if, like, you had somebody on the inside that you were able to get in.
So you get in with this madam,
Mhm.
we'll call her, and what happens then?
Um, by the time I got into the car for that night and we start driving around, that's when she kind of fills me in on what we're going to be actually doing. And that includes servicing men.
It's servicing.
Sex, blowjobs, everything like that. And she was passing around condoms and everything like that, trying to break down, like, how to ask for money. Like, you ask for donations, you don't ask for a set price. They already know the set price. You go in there, you ask for donations, you don't take off a drop of your clothing until the man has fully exposed himself. When he has fully exposed himself, that's when you collect the donations. And then that's when you take off your clothes.
And what's the logic there?
It was more so to see if they were police officers or not, because a police officer cannot fully expose themselves
Oh,
to you. And when you're asking for donations rather than just for money in general, then that eliminates, I guess you can say, the ability to prosecute for solicitation.
okay. It's because it's not a payment; it's a gift.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. So this is 2014.
Late 2014, yeah.
Late
I want to say
2014.
about December-ish.
And so you're in the car. You're on to the first.
Just realised I was on mute when I paused there. I should pause this every now and again, when streaming something on YouTube. This must be such a hard interview for her to do. Fair play to her brutal honesty, right?
First
appointment.
party, and you had no idea until then exactly what
Yeah.
would transpire.
I had no idea, and then once I kind of figured out what was going to be happening, I was like, "Can we just go back to my car? I really don't wanna do this or anything like that. I'd rather go home. I'd rather just go work back at the club," and that upset this lady a lot.
Hmm.
And she started driving around in random circles around town, speeding, slamming on brakes, going around circles, and the bodyguard that was in the front seat was loading up a gun, ready to put it to my head in a way to almost, like, influence me and threaten me. And I was freaking out and scared at that time. I was like, "I really just don't wanna do this. I don't wanna do this," and then they started threatening about, killing me, finding my daughter, killing my daughter, going after my family if I did not do this, or if I chose to do this and then go home and report it to police.
So at this point, you're not a sex worker; you're a sex slave.
Yeah.
Wow.
It went from, like, 0 to 100 in the matter of, like, 20 minutes. And I can say on my first appointment, I guess you can say I went to patients of where my phone was with her that yeah, I mean, it definitely makes it hard, though. I even watch the PGA Masters Tour anymore.
Let's fast forward to late 2014, early 2015. I know you don't have the precise
Yeah, what we want to hear is the how Murdo is involved in this.
date.
There's no chapters, unfortunately, under this, so I can't really quickly get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But you were dispatched with how many other girls was it?
It was usually 2 to 3 other girls in the car.
You were sent to a beach house on the Isle of Palms. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Tell us about that particular trip.
Um, Well, that was probably, like, I guess you can say, like, one of the first times that it had sort of like a private party sense to it of, like, I guess what was portrayed to me. We all went into the house, even my madam, and it was a group of us. We were going in there. It was apparently like a guys' weekend or something like that, and there was, like, a bunch of guys there drinking, doing drugs, had a fire going on the deck, and eating food, just hanging out and stuff like that, which literally for I think it was a good, like, the first hour, hour and a half that we were there, that's literally what we did with them. We were taking shots, doing cocaine, smoking weed, hanging out by the fire, and just talking and, like, almost, like, getting to know them in a way.
Mhm.
And that's where I met Alex Murdaugh. And I remember that, like, I mean, there was at least enough girls for, like, everybody that was there. There was one man that was passed out in a room, so I think, my madam didn't have to service anybody that night, and they kinda just, like, had, like, their pick of the crowd between, like, the girls and everything, and he attached himself to me in a way, and he was very nice and everything like that, very gentlemanlike at first, and we talked.
So I'm just noticing that this video was put out on August the 2nd last year. I was just presuming that this was more recent than that. Hmm.
About, like, what he did for a job, what his name was, where he worked,
He
and all.
told you his name.
Yeah, he actually did tell me his name. He told me that he was a personal injury lawyer out of, South Carolina, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds really familiar." I was like, "I live in Beaufort," and he's like, "Oh, you live in Beaufort? And I like you more already," and, like, we kinda connected on that. We talked about different places to eat in Beaufort, like Alvin Ord's, Plums, Paninis, stuff like that.
So he's treating you with respect. He's
Yeah.
engaging you in a
In a good conversation. So, I mean, like, I felt safe at that point. I didn't feel like it was really that bad of a situation. I was in a lot worse situations before, and I was unfamiliar with people going to, like, hotel rooms with random people that just came off a back page and stuff where I was extremely uncomfortable because I had no idea who they were. So, I guess you can say having, like, a more, like, one-on-one intimate conversation with somebody and actually getting to know them more than just a fake name kind of put me at ease a lot more, and spending time with them, talking about different alcohols and stuff like that, and drinking, and just different stuff to do around the area. It wasn't that bad at the point, like, at that moment.
sure.
And when it came time to actually have to service them, like, I my expectations were still pretty high. I was like, "Okay, shouldn't be that bad. I've already done this a good, like, hundreds of dozens times at this point." I was like, "This shouldn't be that bad." I mean, he seemed like a really nice person, but I was violently choked with both hands, like, being pinned down to the bed in a way by my throat, and it was to the point where I couldn't breathe
By him,
by him.
by Alec
Yes.
Murdaugh
Yes.
at this beach house.
Yeah. And I was pinned down to the bed by my throat with both hands to the point where it was, like, almost like I was blacking out. I was seeing spots. I was seeing stars. I was beating and scratching on his wrist as much as possible to get him to stop because I thought at that moment I was going to die. And it was also while being violently penetrated. And I think it was like as soon as he was done, I couldn't have gotten up and ran out as fast as possible, even completely naked. I just grabbed everything off the floor that was mine and just ran out of the room and went to a bathroom and locked the door. to get dressed and just kind of like collect myself and fight back the tears at that point. And to really just put myself back in order in a way to go on to the next appointment. And my madam was there the whole time. She was in the living room, but she was drinking with the other guys and really didn't hear or pay attention to what was going on or anything. So by the time I got out of the bathroom, I just went up to her. I was like, "We need to go. I want to go." I was like, I just want to get out of this house. I was like, "I'm ready to go." And she's like, "Oh, well, I'm not really ready to go yet. We still got to wait on the other girls." I was like, "Can I at least have the keys to go sit in the car?"
He's the bodyguard.
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, well, he's downstairs smoking. So, I mean, you can go down there with him." And I went out there with him and explained what happened. And he let me go sit in the car and he went up to go talk to my madam about what transpired and why I wanted to get out of the house so fast. And he came back down and just kind of like said she didn't care. She dismissed it. And I was like, "How can you dismiss it for that one person? But if anybody else did that to me, you would be at their throat."
All right, well, there's a claim. Wow. It's always hard to comment on these types of things when you don't really have much information to go on. So it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. You know, it's your perception of her credibility, and it's a horrible thing to have to even bring up, right? But being naturally skeptical, I guess, and as we are in true crime, and because of, you know, occurrences like this, you know, that have come up so often. Um, there are dangers in making judgments too easily, right? Voices, oh my god, I've been listening while doing the housework and didn't realize it was Murdo she was talking about. Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about this. You think he's much worse than Epstein? So many different illegal avenues connected to him. Yeah. The good old boy down south. Yeah. Yeah, there's every possibility of Alex getting Epstein in there. Can't lie. Or him setting it up as such so Buster gets his life insurance. Hmm. Yeah, and the whole side of the road thing was so strange, wasn't it? Another lie. All right, well, You think he was going to kill Eddie? Eddie was obviously the guy, right, that he apparently hired to kill him. Hmm. Well, guys, I think that's all I've got for you tonight. There was a comment somewhere that said there's big guys about to fall regarding the sex stuff. Yeah, there could be a lot more layers to unwrap with this. He was too selfish to kill himself. Hmm. It was one hell of a quick trajectory down, wasn't it, for him? And don't be surprised if some police are involved. Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, it's a bit quiet tonight, obviously. Um, yeah, I hear your voices. Actually, I've got an interview that hopefully will be coming out at some stage, which is really, really interesting on true crime, on a particular infamous or famous serial killer. And it's an interview with someone with some real interesting insight. And it's a bit of a deep dive into a few things. So I think you guys will like that. Perfect timing again. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna head off here. But I am making an effort to try and be more frequent on here. Thanks, Thing One. All right, guys. Well, thanks for everyone that joined in here. It'll be interesting to see if anything else comes up with the Debbie Collier case, because that's a famous pathologist, a respected pathologist that has said that, you know. So watch this space. And then obviously the Sarah Boone trial is the big one for me, which is on the 10th of April. So I may as well actually just put out one standalone video of the whole timeline, you know, just to use it, just to have it there as a reference point. So all the 911 call, the body cam, the interrogation, and all the interviews that were put out publicly, and just have that as a standalone video. That could be cool to have prior to the trial. All right, guys. Well, good night. And as the light dims on another week, let's see what next week brings on Crazy YouTube. All right, guys. I might see you around in the chats. Good night.